The lobby of the Skyline Tower was a cathedral of silence after midnight. Polished marble reflected the cold glow of overhead lights. The only sounds were the whisper of a floor buffer and the low hum of the building's heart. Marcus pushed his cleaning cart across the vast space. His uniform was faded, his shoulders set in a permanent slope of fatigue. He stopped near the security desk. Behind it sat Elias. The old guard's eyes were fixed on the bank of monitors, seeing nothing. A photograph of a smiling woman was clipped to his console. Without a word, Marcus pulled a thermos from his cart. He placed it on the desk beside a brown paper bag. "Coffee's hot," Marcus said, his voice a low rumble in the quiet. "Made it strong tonight." Elias looked up. The lines on his face softened. "You're a good man, Marcus." "You shouldn't. And you shouldn't sit in this tomb with nothing to warm you." Marcus nodded at the bag. Egg salad. On rye. It was a lie. The sandwich was Marcus's own dinner. His refrigerator back home held a half-empty jar of mayonnaise and 2 slices of bread. He watched as Elias unscrewed the thermos. Steam rose, fogging the old man's glasses for a moment. Elias took a sip. He closed his eyes. "Perfect," he whispered. "Just like she used to make." Marcus didn't ask who. He'd seen the grief in the man's posture for months. He simply gave a single nod and pushed his cart toward the elevators. The ritual was the same, night after night. A thermos of coffee. A sandwich. Sometimes a few words. Sometimes just a shared silence that felt like company. The rain traced dirty paths down the window of Marcus's apartment. The single room was clean but bare. On the small table, beneath the weak glow of a ceiling bulb, lay a brochure for the community college. 2 young faces smiled up from the page. Jasmine and Leo, his children. Marcus counted a thin stack of bills, rent, his daughter's textbooks, his son's bus pass. The numbers did not add up. He made himself a dry sandwich of bread and margarine, chewing slowly. The weight in his chest was a familiar stone. Back in the tower lobby, 2 nights later, the silence was different. Elias stared at the photograph on his keychain, his thumb rubbing the edge. "Rough one?" Marcus asked, pausing his polishing. A long moment passed. "Anniversary today," Elias said finally. The words seemed to crack as they left him. 52 years. Marcus stopped working. He walked over and sat on the edge of the desk. He said nothing, just waited. "She loved egg salad," Elias continued, his voice thin. "Hated the crusts. I'd cut them off for her." A single tear escaped, tracing the deep line of his cheek. He let it fall. Marcus put a firm, steady hand on the old man's shoulder. The contact was solid, real. Sounds like a real love. It was. Now it's just quiet. "Quiet ain't the same as empty," Marcus said, his gaze fixed on the dark monitors. "You carry her with you. I can hear it. That's not gone." Elias turned. He looked at Marcus, truly looked at him, as if seeing him for the first time. "What do you carry, Marcus?" The question hung in the chilled air. Marcus looked down at his own rough, work-worn hands. The elevator chimed, breaking the spell. A late worker hurried out. Marcus stood, went back to his cart. He never answered. A week later, a storm lashed the tower windows. Elias shivered at his post, his skin pale and clammy. "You're sick," Marcus stated, feeling the man's forehead. "It was furnace hot." "It's nothing." "A chill." "It's a fever." "You're going home." When Elias protested about his job, Marcus cut him off, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Your shift is over. I'll cover. Go." He helped the trembling man into his coat, led him to the curb, and hailed a cab. He paid the driver with the last $20 from his pocket money meant for a utility bill. He watched the taxi's red taillights dissolve into the silver sheets of rain. For the rest of the night, Marcus sat in the security chair, a janitor in a guard's post, watching the screens, signing for a cleaning supply delivery. He did the job. The next evening, the main elevator chimed a rare sound after dark. The door slid open without a sound. A man stepped out. He wore a suit that cost more than Marcus made in a year. His hair was silvered at the temples, his posture one of absolute authority. This was Caleb Thorne. The name was on the building's cornerstone. He was followed by a flustered building manager, who was already talking. "Mr. Thorne, I assure you, the regular guard will be disciplined for his unauthorized absence." Quiet. Caleb's voice was not loud. It simply ended all other sound. His eyes found Marcus, who had stood up from the desk. He crossed the marble floor. His shoes made no sound. He stopped before Marcus. "Who are you?" "Marcus, sir. Janitorial. Why are you at this desk?" Marcus met his gaze. He did not look down. "The guard was taken ill last night. I covered his post so he wouldn't face penalty. He's a good man. He needs the work." Caleb Thorne studied him. The scrutiny was intense, microscopic. "You paid for his cab." It was not a question. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. How could this man know that? "Yes, sir. You leave him food. Every night. A thermos of coffee. An egg salad sandwich. No crusts." The private ritual laid bare. Marcus felt the ground grow unsteady beneath his feet. "My father," Caleb said, and the word landed with the weight of an anvil, "has spoken of little else for weeks. Marcus did this. Marcus said that I thought he was confused, lost in grief. I had him discreetly observed. For his safety." The pieces locked together. Elias Thorne, the reclusive patriarch, the grieving widower. He hadn't been a forgotten night watchman. He had been a man testing the soul of the world from the lowliness of a security desk. "Your father," Marcus breathed. "You showed him a kindness he believed extinct," Caleb said. The polished CEO veneer was still there, but a hairline fracture had appeared in his voice. "You saw a man, not a position. You gave him your food when you have little. You gave him your coat last week when the vent below this desk froze." Caleb reached into his jacket. He produced a plain white envelope. He held it out. "This is not a reward. It is a recalibration." Marcus took it. His fingers were not quite steady. He opened the flap dot. Inside was a check. The number of zeros made his vision blur. Beneath it was a formal letter on thick watermark paper. A letter of appointment. "I can't," Marcus whispered, the words raw. "This is too much." "It is an investment," Caleb stated. "The check will secure your children's education. All of it. The letter is an offer. Director of Community Outreach for Thorne Industries. We have a philanthropic division. It is currently a competent line on our tax ledger. I want you to give it a soul." Marcus looked from the papers to Caleb's face. He searched for condescension, for theatrical charity. He found neither. Only a stark, sober certainty. "Why?" Marcus asked. "Because my father found his heart again in a silent lobby with a janitor and a thermos," Caleb said. The fracture in his voice widened. "He is coming home. Because of you. The least I can do is ensure the man who saved him never has to choose between feeding a stranger and feeding his own children again." 6 months later, sunlight streamed into a bright, airy community center in a part of the city the towers never shadowed. The sign outside read, "The Elias and Margot Warmth Foundation." Inside, Marcus stood before a local community board, not corporate executives. He wore a simple, comfortable jacket. "The goal isn't to give handouts," he explained. his voice calm and sure. It's to give a hand up. It's about dignity. Like a hot coffee on a cold night when you're certain no one sees you. The people in the room nodded. They understood. Across the bustling space, near a bank of computers where teenagers worked, an old man sat with a boy struggling over a math textbook. It was Elias. His color was back. His eyes were clear and present. He pointed to an equation on the page, speaking in a gentle, patient tone. Caleb Thorne stood near the entrance, out of his father's sight. He watched the scene. He saw Marcus notice his father, saw the silent acknowledgement that passed between them, a current of profound understanding that needed no words. Caleb walked over to Marcus. He tutors here 3 days a week, Caleb said, his gaze on his father. Says it's the best medicine he's ever had. Marcus nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. He's good at it. Caleb let out a long, slow breath, taking in the vibrant room, the after-school programs, the job skills workshops, the community kitchen just opening for the evening meal. This, Caleb said quietly, almost to himself. This is what it was supposed to be for. All of it, the money, the tower, not just to build more towers. He turned to Marcus, the man who is now his director, his guide. You recalibrated us all, Marcus. Later, Marcus stood outside on the steps, breathing in the cool air. A modest, reliable car pulled up. His daughter Jasmine got out, a bright smile on her face, a chemistry textbook tucked under her arm. Ace the midterm, Dad, she said, throwing her arms around him. Professor says my lab work is the best in the section. He held her tight, his chin resting on her head. Over her shoulder, in the distance, the skyline tower glinted in the afternoon sun. It didn't look like a cold temple anymore. It looked like a place where a quiet act could begin. He had learned something. They say kindness is its own reward, and that is the sacred truth of it. But sometimes the world takes notice of the quiet hearts. It hears the scrape of a thermos on a desk, the rustle of a paper bag in the deep night, and it decides that the people who offer warmth, especially when their own world holds a chill, deserve to feel a little sunlight on their face. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need wealth to give. You just have to see the person in front of you. Really see them. And sometimes that changes everything. Asterisk if my video good, then subscribe, like, share my video, and comment.